although this is not even close to one of my favorite Bible stories. Really, 3 chapters about the same kind of events and what transpires from start to finish. This is a story that you probably won't find a Hallmark movie about. If you know what I'm talking about, you will by the end of the night. This is a story in our 8 to 12s class that we purposely, there are very few stories in Scripture that we skip over, but there's just not, it's not one that lends itself well or easily to children's ministry. It's hard. It covers so many different just vile, almost outrageous, evil things that there's no way to kind of clean it up and present it and get what you need out of it. The Bible presents it to us because the author of Judges wants us to know what a world is like where God receives lip service, but people are really doing whatever they think is right. And that's very important for people that are in church to know, because we can be very good at that. Praise God. Praise the Lord. You know, I pray every day. I open my Bible. I read. You know, when I go through things, I ask God for help. So will the people in tonight's story. But at the end, man, there's nothing but tragedy and heartbreak, and it just ends so abruptly, and you think, man, this is the people of God. Do they even know him? I don't want that for me, and I don't want it for any of you. Let's jump in. We've got to cover a lot of ground. I think we can do this. If you would, silence your phones, please, just to minimize distractions. And if you have kids in children's ministry, remember, that's how a teacher will reach out if your kid is beating up another kid, okay? So if you get called out, we can think bad thoughts about you as you leave. Okay. Ready for this? Chapter 19, Book of Judges. Verse 1. And it came to pass in those days when there was no king in Israel, no king, no human king, but also God was not a king in these people's hearts and lives. He was not enthroned in their being. Right? They didn't bow the knee to God. There was no king in Israel. That there was, and now here's the story, a certain Levite. He's going to be unnamed. And I think as an unnamed man, he is representative of many men who know nothing about how to treat a woman, nothing about what real love looks like, and who always thinks that everybody else's sin is way worse than their own. He is unnamed for a reason, and I would read into that and say, man, so each one of us can relate to him. Now, this certain Levite, he lived in the remote mountains of Ephraim. He's a mountain man. He took for himself, notice this, a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. Now, this is a wife, but a second-class wife with less rights. Maybe his first wife couldn't have kids, and so he took a concubine, hoping, another wife of lesser stature or value, hoping that he could get kids from her. Or maybe he just thought two's going to be better than one. Whatever the reason, he ends up with this woman. She's less than a wife, but he is her husband. Verse 2. But his concubine, here's a turn, played the harlot against him and went away from him to her father's house. It seems that she went to a season of trying to get away from him, which included finding other men or another man, and eventually deserted him and went to her father's house at Bethlehem in Judah. So she traveled a good ways and was there for 4 whole months. Now let's just hold back judgment until we get a little later in the story, because at first you're like, man, what kind of witchy woman is this? Poor guy. I think by the end of it all, we'll be thinking, man, maybe she was right to maybe she did it all wrong, but maybe she was right to try to get away from this guy. So just let's withhold judgment until we read the whole story. So then her husband arose, and he went after her. That seems good. To speak kindly to her and bring her back. My gut feeling is this is an abusive man who will continue to pursue her to keep her in a place of vulnerability and oppression. That's just my gut. We'll see. And he brought his servant and a couple of donkeys with him. So he has some degree of wealth, some degree of means. And so she brought him into her father's house. You can imagine him showing up and saying, hey, remember me? And when the father of the young woman saw him, he was glad to meet him. Why was he glad? Well, his daughter, having run away from that marriage, even as a concubine, or like a lesser wife, she would be provided for again. It could be that he was selfish, didn't really want to take care of her, and the husband shows back up, and he's like, great. Or, maybe he's just like, maybe there's hope for you too. I don't exactly know, but we'll kind of get a flavor of this guy too, the father of the young woman. Now, his father-in-law, the young woman's father, detained him in a good way, so to speak, and he stayed with him 3 days. He kept saying, hey, hang out with me, eat, drink. We'll see this process here. It happens a couple of times. So they ate and they drank and they lodged there, stayed 3 days. And on the fourth day, it came to pass on the fourth day, that they arose early in the morning, and he stood to depart. That would be the certain Levite with the concubine for his wife. But the young woman's father-in-law, said to his son-in-law, hey, refresh your heart with a morsel of bread, and afterward go your way. So they sat down, and the two of them ate, and this is probably a key word, drank together. They started in the morning, and they ate, and they drank. Then the young woman's father said to the man, please be content to stay all night and let your heart be merry. This is probably an indication that they're drinking something other than water, and they're drinking a fair amount of it. And when the man stood to depart, his father-in-law urged him, this would be the next morning, so he lodged there again and ate and drank all day. Then he arose early in the morning on the fifth day to depart. But the young woman's father said, please refresh your heart. So they delayed until afternoon, and both of them ate. This guy's lonely, I guess. I don't know. He's not wanting this guy to take off. I mean, maybe it's pretty boring there in Bethlehem. This is kind of exciting for him. I'm not sure. Maybe it's an excuse to drink every day. I'm not really 100% sure what's going on in his heart. But anyway, now it's 5 days that he's been there. And now it's the middle of the afternoon. And then, verse 9, when the man stood to depart, the certain Levite, he and his concubine, his servant, his father-in-law, the young woman's father, said to him, look, the day is now drawing toward the evening. Please spend the night. See, the day is coming to an end. Lodge here that your heart may be merry. Tomorrow go your way early so that you may get home. Man, he's like, I've heard this before. I need to get out of here. I gotta get back to work. I gotta get back home. But remember, it's the middle of the afternoon now. It's not in the morning when he would need to kind of leave to make it home before night. It's the middle of the day. And so, it's even drawing towards the evening. Verse 10, that kind of sets us up to what happens next. However, the man was not willing to spend that night, so he rose and departed and came opposite Jebus, not Jesus, Jebus, that is Jerusalem. That's helpful. With him were the 2 saddled donkeys. His concubine was also with him. And they were near Jebus, or Jerusalem, and the day was far spent. And the servant said to his master, come, please, and let us turn aside into this city of the Jebusites, Jerusalem, and lodge in it. That would have been preferable. By the end of the night, everybody wished they would have stopped in this Canaanite city. But his master said to the servant, we will not turn aside here into a city of foreigners who are not of the children of Israel. We will go on to Gibeah. You know, Gibeah, there are Israelite brethren. There's a tribe of Benjamin those are the people that lived in Gibeah. They'll treat us better than the Canaanites would. Really. So he said to his servant, "Come, let us draw near to one of these places and spend the night in either Gibeah or Ramah." So there's some options on the table at this point. And they passed by and they went their way, and the sun went down on them near Gibeah. So that's where they ended up, which belongs to Benjamin. They turned aside there to go in to lodge in Gibeah. And when he went in, he sat down in the open square of the city, for no one would take them into his house to spend the night. That's very unusual in the Middle East, where hospitality is really a big deal. Even strangers. A while back, I think it was the night before we went on some vacation, my wife would remember more of the details, but we had a couple, middle-aged couple, pull into our driveway. They needed directions. And me and my son, we went out, we started talking to them and realized they're from another country. So, obviously, so just by their accents and there's telltale signs that they were not Mainers. And so we're like, "Hey, where are you from?" And they said, "We're from Israel. We're just, kind of exploring the United States. We work remotely and we have the ability to do that. We've always wanted to come here and we're kind of touring all over." And they were looking for a good restaurant on Frost Street. I was like, I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I have an opinion about restaurants that probably isn't popular. But anyway, I was like, and Judah's talking up a storm, and I'm talking up a storm. I'm like, "Man, I was in Israel just a short time ago. We were talking. Hey, why don't you guys come and eat dinner with us?" Or they were looking for dessert. They were looking for dessert, a good dessert. I said, "Hey, come have dessert with us. We'll rustle something up. We'll make something. We'd love to, and they seem like very safe people, very, very decent people." And they're like, "Oh, no. And then I left for some reason. Jess called me, a kid issue, and then Judah's still talking to them. I came back to the car, and they're like, we'll stay for dessert. We'll hang out with you guys for a little bit. Is that okay?" So they went to Hannaford. They got some desserts. They came back, and we talked to them for hours and hours and hours. I'm not saying I was going to let them spend the night. It was a wonderful experience, and they really enjoyed themselves, and we really enjoyed ourselves. Our kids stayed up late, and I was hanging on everything word they were saying, and we shared the gospel with them. It was a really, really, really cool evening. Hospitality is a big deal. And in Israel, in the Middle East, is a very big deal. But no one offered anything to them. That was unusual. And that kind of leads to what happens next. Just then an old man came in from his work in the field at evening, who also was from the mountains of Ephraim, also a mountain man, not a Benjamite, not from that area. He was staying temporarily in Gibeah. Apparently he had a home, though, whereas the men of the place were Benjamites. There's no N there, but I'll keep saying it the way I want to. And when he raised his eyes, he saw the traveler in the open square. Remember, it's the man, it's the servant, it's the donkeys, it's his concubine. And the old man said, "Where are you going, and where do you come from?" And so he said, certain Levite said, "We are passing from Bethlehem in Judah toward the remote mountains of Ephraim. I am from there." He's probably like, no kidding, I am too. "I went to Bethlehem in Judah. Now I'm going to the house of the Lord." That would be in Shiloh. "But there is no one who will take me into his house, though we both have straw and fodder for our donkeys, and bread and wine for myself, and for your female servant, and for the young man who is with your servant. There is no lack of anything. Look, I don't need anything. I'm just looking for a place to lie my head." And the old man said, "Peace be with you. You found the right place. You've met the right guy. However, let all your needs be my responsibility. Let me take care of you. Only," and this is one of those like kind of the hair on the back of your neck should stand up, especially if you're an Israelite. "Do not spend the night in the open square." Don't do it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's go to your house. That sounds way better than the open square after you just said something like that. Maybe it's because of the story of Lot that this would kind of ring a bell in the Jewish mind. You guys know Lot, right? Lot was Abraham's nephew. Lot had a conflict with Abraham. Lot chose to take land in the direction of Sodom and Gomorrah, an exceedingly wicked place, and before long had moved right into the city and was even making leadership decisions alongside men that God was far from. God spoke to Abraham and said, I'm going to destroy the city of Sodom and of Gomorrah if there are not 5 righteous people there. And so there was an exchange. I'm really condensing here. But God would then send 2 angels into the city of Sodom, and they would come, and Lot would see them, and he'd say, man, don't spend the night out here. It's not safe. Come into my house. And certain perverted men, homosexual men, came to his door and demanded that they didn't know they were angels, these men that had come under Lot's roof be turned out to them so they could abuse them and know them. And Lot, they pressed hard against Lot. They were going to break down the door. The angels miraculously made everyone blind. Get this, the men didn't stop trying to find the door. They continued to try to find it, but they were weary because they were blind now. And the angels turned to Lot and his family and said, let's get out of here. And Lot went to his sons-in-laws and said, hey, we got to get out of here. This has gotten terrible. We got to get out of this place. God is going to judge it. And they thought he was just joking. And in the end, Lot only escapes with just his 2 daughters, being told not to look back at the judgment of God. Lot's wife had gone with him, but being told, divinely warned, do not look back at the city as you're fleeing. She looked back, probably remembering the life that she had lived there and kind of missing it. And she turned to a pillar of salt. So when somebody says, don't spend the night in the open square, that kind of like, if you're, even for me, I know the story, that's what it reminds me of. And so we can't know what the Levite thought, but man, okay, yeah, we'll spend the night with you. Good. And so, verse 21, he brought them into his house and gave fodder to the donkeys, and they washed their feet and ate and drank. Now, you remember, hey, let's not go to the Jebus. Let's not go to Jerusalem. That's the city of the Jebusites, the Canaanites. We're going to stay with the people of Israel. We'll be treated a whole lot better. And now, verse 22. As they were enjoying themselves, they were eating, they were drinking, they were washing feet, they were just relaxing. It's been a long day of travel. They're on their way home, going to get an early start in the morning. Suddenly, certain men of the city, perverted men, surrounded the house and beat on the door. It doesn't say if it's 5 or 10 or 20 or 50 or 100. We're not sure. But they came and they beat on the door, and they spoke to the master of the house. He went out, the old man, saying, bring out the man who came to your house, that we may know him carnally. That means sexually. But the man, the master of the house, went out to them. He shut the door. He said to them, no, my brethren. Could you call someone like that your brother? I just couldn't. I wouldn't use brethren there. But he's appealing to them. I beg you, do not act so wickedly. No, my brethren, I beg you, do not act so wickedly. Seeing this man has come into my house, he's my responsibility. The rules of hospitality would kind of dictate, I'm going to do everything I can to protect the one that has come under my house. Do not commit this outrage. Now, I want you to see a few words here. Wickedly, do not act so wickedly. And then he uses this word, do not commit this outrage. Are you in agreement? And I hope so. I mean, is the threat these men are making, is it outrageous? Is it wicked? Yes. The problem is what this old man says next, and what this certain Levite allows to be done to his wife. And that they don't see that as being as wicked or as outrageous or as terrible. So this old man says, don't do this to this man. Look, here is my virgin daughter and the man's concubine. Let me bring them out now. Humble them. He's basically saying, rape them
and do with them as you please, but to this man do not do such a vile thing. Man, I'm just so sick when I read this and I think about this is this classic, and I'm sorry, I'll just speak bluntly because I'm not really good at speaking pretty. This is this classic God's people being gay haters, but not knowing that all the other things they allow and are okay with break God's heart too. They find a sin that they can say, oh man, that's a really nasty one. That's outrageous. That's wicked. And then in almost the same breath are willing to turn their virgin daughter and his wife over to these men so they can humble them. That's crazy, guys. It's crazy that people don't see things the way that God sees them because they don't care to. They don't care what his word says. Now, I'm not for a second saying that what these men wanted to do to this man was right or good or not wicked or terrible, but what they offer up instead, man, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. These men should have said, no, we will fight you to the death to protect ourselves and those that God has called us to protect and honor. We'd never do such a thing. But apparently, and you can see it in his language, it is a less outrageous and wicked thing to give them a virgin daughter and a wife to abuse all night. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? But here's the problem. Here's the problem. We often see sin that way. Now, understand this. There is definitely an argument out there, I totally disagree with it, that only violent homosexuality is offensive to God. Kind of consensual, what's the word, like platonic, like, where two men or two ladies love each other. That's okay in God's eyes. No, here's the deal. Sexuality is a fire that is meant to add heat and passion and beauty and intimacy to a marriage. And when you take fire out of the wood stove and you put it on your carpet, or you put it on your drapes, or you put it on your sofa, what starts very small can literally burn your house down in 5 minutes. It starts small, but perversion, any degree of perversion, like fire, it can spread so fast. And what God has said so clearly in his word is that sexuality is between one man and one woman in the covenant of a lifelong commitment called marriage. He came up with that before the world fell into sin. It means a whole lot to him. He knows best. He really does. And so, that's just to say, but, in our culture, it's very easy growing up in the church or being around the church to identify, be like, oh man, yeah, that is outrageous. But why are they not outraged by this treatment of daughter and wife? That is just, it begs the question, do these people have any real understanding of God's heart? Look, here is my virgin daughter and the man's concubine. Let me bring them out to you right now. Humble them and do with them as you please. But to this man, do not do such a violent thing. Now, I kind of wondered, maybe there's 100 men there and they're thinking, if we give them these girls, we'll probably get the girls back in the morning, I hope, And if we don't, they'll kill us all. Maybe there's that kind of pressure. But as we read, I think we'll see that there's not that kind of pressure. Because this dude, just read a little bit further. But the men would not heed him. They didn't want to accept that. They wanted the man. So the man took his concubine. The old man doesn't end up putting his daughter out. Thank God for her sake. But the man, he took his second-class wife, his concubine, and he brought her out to them. And they knew her and abused her all night until morning. And when the day began to break, they let her go. Then the woman came as the day was dawning and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was, till it was light. And when her master, now check this out. This is how I know They weren't threatening to kill him. When her master arose in the morning, where did he arise from, guys? He got up out of bed. He was sleeping through the night as they were doing this to his wife. He got up, the day's dawning, she's crawling for the door and falls at the threshold of it. Then when her master arose, notice master now, not husband, master, arose in the morning and opened the doors of the house, and he went out to go his way, which meant he had slept, eaten breakfast, had his coffee, packed his bags. He was ready to go, saddled up the animals that maybe that was outside. But he was all ready to go. There was his concubine fallen at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. And he said to her, "Get up and let us be going." I don't know, I hate this guy. I really don't like him, Eric. I really don't like this guy. Get up and let us be going. But there was no answer. So the man lifted her onto the donkey, and the man got up and went to his place. He finished the journey. Now, I said the man was unnamed because I think he's representative of many men, and I think the woman here is unnamed. She's representative of the tragic treatment of many women. Many, probably millions and millions of girls and ladies that are treated and exploited. It's just, man, it's so messed up. So messed up. This story is so messed up. It gets worse. When he entered his house, he took a knife and he laid hold of his concubine and he divided her into 12 pieces, limb by limb, and sent her throughout all the territory of Israel. It's like, dude, if this tragedy came to your family, would you be cutting up that body? No, you'd be weeping, you'd be mourning, you'd be burying, you would, maybe find some civil authorities. Maybe you would reach out to the 12 tribes of Israel, but you wouldn't cut her up. And then just, let's see where this goes. He took a knife, he cuts her up, and he sent her throughout all the territory of Israel. And so it was that all who saw it said, "No such deed has been done or seen from the day that the children of Israel came up from the land of Egypt until this day. Consider it, confer, and speak up." Now, that causes me to think, oh man, he's now taking this crime. Maybe he kind of had a turning in his heart and his mind. He's like, man, that was really bad what they did to her. And I'm going to share this story with all of Israel. And, because what they did to her was wrong. Maybe he just did a terrible job through this situation. Maybe he was afraid. Maybe he's a terrible guy. But then afterwards, he realized how heinous this deed was that was done to her. And I thought, maybe that's it. But then I kept reading. I don't think that's it at all. The crime, the outrage, the wicked thing that he has on his mind is not the same thing that we are thinking right now. Let's keep reading. So chapter 20, verse 1. He sends her body parts around Israel. And so all the children of Israel came out from Dan to Beersheba, as well as from the land of Gilead. The congregation gathered together as one man before the Lord at Mizpah. And all the leaders of all the people, all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God. 400,000 foot soldiers who drew the sword. I mean, this gets a crowd, right? 400,000 people show up to fight. They are upset with the people of Gibeah. Now, the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Israel had gone up to Mizpah, that they'd gathered. But we're going to see the children of Benjamin, that whole tribe, they don't go up. Then the children of Israel said to the man, the certain Levite, they said, "Tell us, how did this wicked deed happen?" Well, what exactly transpired? Notice, it's very telling how he shares about things that night. So the Levite, the husband of the woman who was murdered, which is what happened to her, is extremely vile and terrible, and we know that. So the Levite, the husband of the woman who was murdered, answered and said, "My concubine and I went into Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin, to spend the night. And the men of Gibeah rose," notice this, "against me and surrounded the house at night because of me. They intended to kill me, but instead they ravished my concubine so that she died." He kind of conveniently leaves out the fact that he gave them his concubine and then went to bed for the night. What's the offense to the nation of Israel? What is the exceedingly wicked thing to them? What is the offense that this man, he cut up his concubine, he shipped her all around the nation? What is the offense? It's not what happened to her. It's what was potentially going to happen to him. Do you see that? It's not out of concern or love or care for the future ladies of Israel. It's because they're like, man, the guys in Gibeah's, they're homos. We got to go take care of it. That's the idea here, right? We got to go take care of them. And what the tragedy of this time period in Israel is that they can see this sin as being bad. But the problem is they don't see anything else that they're doing. Their distance from God, their treatment of women, their love for one another, all of that. They don't see any of that. They only see one sin issue. And this is the crazy thing, that we can fall into the same trap, where we identify something that truly is wrong, but we focus so much on that thing that we miss all that's wrong in our own lives, all that's wrong in our own families, all that's wrong in our own hearts. Things that God wouldn't want us to miss. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? I really don't like this story. I'm not excited to teach it. I'm just trying to be faithful to share. I know it's in here for a reason, and this is just kind of where, some of the things that, like reading it, that I kind of got out of it. So he's saying to the congregation of 400,000 foot soldiers, he's like, they intended to kill me. They came out against me. They surrounded the house at night because of me. So I took hold of my concubine after they had ravished her and she died, and I cut her into pieces, and I sent her throughout all the territory in the inheritance of Israel because they committed lewdness and outrage in Israel. Just remember, just to emphasize it again, he's not talking about what happened to her. He's talking about what they potentially wanted to do to him, or what they had threatened against him. Look, all of you are children of Israel. Give your advice and counsel here and now. Isn't this terrible? And so all the people arose as one man, saying, none of us will go into his tent, nor will any turn back to his house. But now this is the thing which we will do to Gibeah. We will go up against it by lot. We will take 10 men out of every 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, 100 out of every 1,000, and 1,000 out of every 10,000, and make provisions for the people. That's still 40,000 people going against Gibeah. And when they had come to Gibeah and Benjamin, that they may repay all the vileness that they had done in Israel. And so all the men of Israel were gathered against the city, united together as one man. And I would say, again, it is right that they want to deal with this sin, but they are missing all of the other things that are heinous and wrong. It's kind of like what Jesus said. He said, man, Eric, you mentioned it the other night. Now, yeah, he's like, you're trying to help somebody out with the speck in their eye, but you're not seeing the huge plank that's sticking out of your own eye. Jesus said, why don't you take care of the plank that's in your own eye, and then you can help someone else. They don't want to see that at all. So verse 12, then the tribes of Israel sent men throughout all the tribe of Benjamin. Now Benjamin hadn't come up to join them, remember. And they said, what is this wickedness that has occurred among you? Now therefore deliver up the men, the perverted men who are in Gibeah. Give us the gaze, right? That we may put them to death and remove the evil from Israel. But the children of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. Instead, the children of Benjamin gathered together from their cities to Gibeah to go to battle against the children of Israel. They were ready to fight about it. See that even today. And from their cities at that time, the children of Benjamin numbered 26,000 men who drew the sword, beside the inhabitants of Gibeah, who numbered 700 select men. So there were kind of like 700 kind of Navy SEAL type guys from Gibeah. They were super special. They were great fighters. Among all this people were 700, these select men from Gibeah, who were left-handed, a Benjamite trait, I guess. Everyone could sling a stone at a hair's breadth and not miss. Now beside Benjamin, the men of Israel numbered 400,000 men who drew the sword. All of these were men for war. So they've gathered up, battle lines have been drawn. Benjamin is going to try to protect the men of Gibeah. Everybody else is coming in, and there's going to be a battle. So verse 18. Then the children of Israel arose and went up to the house of God to inquire of God. That sounds good, right? And they said, which of us shall go up first to battle against the children of Benjamin? And notice, the Lord does respond. The Lord said, Judah first. Very short, very brief. He answers their question. They ask, he gives a terse, succinct, short response. Notice they didn't say, hey, should we? They just said, hey, we're going up. Who should go first? Now, God may have wanted them to deal with this heinous act or the inhabitants of Gibeah, but they kind of come to God. It kind of the sense is they haven't been there in a while. They haven't been talking to him a whole lot. And they say, well, who should go up first to battle? And the Lord does say, Judah first. And so the children of Israel rose, verse 19, in the morning and encamped against Gibeah, and the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin. And the men of Israel put themselves in battle array. They drew lines to fight against them at Gibeah. Then the children of Benjamin, they came out of Gibeah, and on that day cut down to the ground 22,000 men of the Israelites. So Benjamin carries the day. They win the battle. And the people, that is the men of Israel, encouraged themselves and again formed the battle line at the place where they had put themselves in array on the first day. They're willing to fight. That kind of is good. They're willing to have a standard. That's kind of good. They did ask God for direction, who should go up first. It's not that everything that they're doing is bad, but let's keep reading. I'll just offer my 2 cents. Then the children of Israel went up and they wept before the Lord because 22,000 of them had died until evening. And they asked counsel of the Lord, saying, shall I again draw near for battle against the children of my brother Benjamin? And the Lord said again, notice the shortness of this response, go up against him. And so the children of Israel approached the children of Benjamin on the second day. And the Benjamin went out against them from Gibeah on the second day and cut down to the ground 18,000 more, a grand total of 40,000 men of Israel now dead, more of the children of Israel. All these drew the sword. So we come to the third day. Then all the children of Israel, that is, all the people, went up and they came to the house of God and they wept. They sat there before the Lord and they fasted that day until evening. And they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. So the children of Israel inquired of the Lord. The ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days, saying, shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of my brother Benjamin? Or shall I cease? Kind of they're really starting to ask better questions. And they're even inquiring of Phinehas the priest and considering the presence of the Lord, the Ark of the Covenant. But just something that I noticed, I wonder if through the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it took a while for this culture to get so degraded to the point where they would allow things like this to happen to women and not be as outraged about them. I wonder if there's thousands of other things they should have come and inquired of from God, and they just didn't care. And when a very pressing, very needful situation came, they're like, now we got to pray. We're losing men. We got to deal with Gibeah. Now we got to talk to God. And God's like, when I text my wife and I get one-word responses, she's either busy or there's something going on. And I'm not that smart, but I do know that. And it's almost like, God's like, oh yeah, yep, okay, yeah, do that. Do that. And all they know how to do is inquire in times of trouble. But they, like Psalm 27:4, David, a man after God's own heart, he said, there's one thing I want to do with my life, and that's to inquire and ask of God those things that we all need. We all need direction and guidance. But he also says, and to see the beauty of the Lord. I want to know God. I want to know who he is, and I want who he is to change my life. That was David's heart. Do you sense that here? Or is this just the people saying, hey, we lost a bunch of men. God, we really need you to tell us what to do. But they don't want to see a whole lot of things wrong with their society and culture, and them personally. They just want his help in taking out the people that are really bad. He does respond. He does respond. The Lord said, verse 28, go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into your hand. And then the people of Israel, sorry for how fast I'm reading, but I want to finish it out. Then Israel set men in ambush all around Gibeah. I think I can actually skip this section. They come and they attack. There's an ambush. 30 Israelites are lost. The Benjamites think they're winning again. They run out. and the men of Israel set basically an ambush. They come behind the Benjaminites. They enter the city. They set it on fire, and the Benjaminites are gonna lose. And then they start pursuing these Benjaminites wherever they run to. We'll pick up in verse 43. They surrounded the Benjamites. They chased them. They easily trampled them down as far as the front of Gibeah towards the east, and 18,000 men of Benjamin fell. If you're keeping track, now we're at, 40,000, 58,000 people have died. And then those numbers escalate. Then they fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and they cut down 5,000 more on the highways, and they pursued them relentlessly up to Gibeon, and they killed 2,000 more of the Benjamites. So all who fell of Benjamin that day were 25,000 men who drew the sword. All these were men of valor. But, now notice this, 600 men, Benjamites, turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon. They got away, and they stayed at the rock of Rimmon, kind of in the wilderness, for 4 months. They got away, and they stayed away. And the men of Israel turned back. They didn't pursue them there against the children of Benjamin. And then they cleaned up. They went around, and there was really a genocide. They struck them down with the edge of the sword, every city, man and beast, all who were found. They also set fire to all the cities they came to. The men of Israel would go through all of the Benjamite territory, and they killed women, they killed men, they killed elderly, they killed children. What? Did God tell them to do that? No, they just did it. They're just focused on that one sin that they really hated a lot. And they end up killing really almost the entire tribe. Just killing people that weren't even involved. There was a problem because they almost wiped out an entire tribe, except for these 600 men who had fled to Rimmon for 4 months. They had fought in the battle. They had, been on the side of, I guess, let's say, evil. But there was a problem now in the hearts of the men of Israel. Chapter 21. We'll do it quickly. Now the men of Israel had sworn an oath at Mizpah, saying, "None of us shall give his daughter to Benjamin as a wife." I mean, they're like, hey, Benjamin's for some wicked things. None of our girls are marrying any of them anymore, right? It's not going to happen, or during our lifetime. So they'd made an oath between each other. Then the people came to the house of the Lord. They remained there before God till evening. They lifted up their voices and wept bitterly, and they said, "O Lord God of Israel, why has this come to pass in Israel, that today there should be one tribe missing in Israel?" Notice, God does not respond. God does not respond. They ask a question, and they're not looking for a response, which is why God most often does not respond to us, because we don't really want to hear what he said. Because if he would say what he really felt, he'd say, there is so much messed up in you, and that's how this all got this bad. Come back to me, repent. They're not interested in that. They ask this question, why is everything so bad right now? And they don't wait around for the response because they don't want to hear it. So it was on the next morning that the people rose and built an altar there, and they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. They're going to church. They're doing the thing. They're doing all the right things, so to speak. The children of Israel said, "Who is there among all the tribes of Israel who did not come up to the assembly to the Lord?" When we rallied the troops and 400,000 men showed up to deal with Gibeah and the tribe of Benjamin, did anybody not come from Israel? Everybody should have come, right? For they had made a great oath. This is something else they had promised each other. They had said, hey, none of us are going to let Benjaminites marry our girls. And they had made another oath. If anybody doesn't show up for battle, we're going to kill them. Verse 6. And the children of Israel grieved for Benjamin, their brother, and they said, hey, one tribe is cut off from Israel today. What shall we do for wives for those who remain? Remember them 600 guys? Seeing we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them our daughters as wives. What are we going to do? They can't marry our daughters. We made an oath, right? The tribe's going to disappear. They're not going to have any children. We killed them all, right? And they said, what one is there from the tribes of Israel who did not come up to Mizpah to the Lord? Who didn't join us for battle? And, in fact, no one had come up to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. Nobody had showed up to fight. I guess they didn't really think it was that bad of a thing that the Gibeonites did, or they just didn't have time to show up. Whatever the reason was, for when the people were counted, indeed, not one of the inhabitants of Jabesh-Gilead was there. So what do you think the people of Israel are going to do? Any guesses? We're almost there, guys. We can make it. What do you think the people of Israel should do? This one group of people didn't show up to help. What should they do? Are they going to ask the Lord? No, they're not going to ask the Lord. They're just going to go and kill everybody because that makes sense to them. There's people that is inquiring, they're hanging out at the temple, they're offering sacrifices. Do they know God? No, everybody does what's right in their own eyes. They don't know God. I remember when I was in a discipleship ministry like the one that Jordan just left, and I was there. A guy came in. He was an older man, and I came around the corner. I was a leader. He had just come into the program, and I came around the corner. He was telling a bunch of other guys how when he was younger, he'd been at a roller skating ring, and these people, gay people, he used some other words for them, were going around. They were skating, and how him and his buddy, they came around. The guy wasn't looking. He was going one way. They were going the other way, and they clotheslined him and knocked him to the floor. And how they laughed about it and had such a good time. And I said, don't ever tell that story again. How sick of you to think that that's what's going to change their life and bring them back to God. And this man was a professing Christian, right? Obviously, he still had problems. He was in a discipleship ministry because he couldn't stop the thing that had controlled his life, but all he could see was the sin of another. He never really did come to the end of his own sin. And that's what's happening in this nation here and what we have to be on guard of. And so they went to Jabesh-Gilead and they killed everyone, including the women and children. But get this, they're like trying to find wives for those 600 Benjaminites that had fled, that now they're not angry at. So they steal the virgin girls from Jabesh-Gilead. They find 400 young virgins who had not known a man intimately, and they brought them back with them. They kidnapped these 400 girls. They just slaughtered their families. They slaughtered their siblings. They slaughtered their parents and their grandparents, and they brought them along and said, hey, these girls are going to be great wives for the Benjaminites so the tribe doesn't have to go away. Isn't this sick? This is why we don't teach this in children's ministry, right? We just skip this one. Not much we skip, but this just awful. So verse 13, then the whole congregation sent word to the children of Benjamin who were at the rock of Rimmon, and they announced peace to them. They didn't say, hey, have you changed your ways? Do you think what happened was wrong? They just said, hey, we've forgotten about what you did. Come on back. That's not justice, is it? There's no justice in that. They've killed a lot of people to just let these people come back, but they don't want the tribe to die. So Benjamin came back at that time, and they gave them the women whom they had saved alive from the women of Jabesh-Gilead. And yet they didn't have enough. Man, 400 is not enough for 600 Benjamites. And the people grieved for Benjamin because the Lord had made a void in the tribes of Israel. The Lord hadn't done that. They did it. Then the elders of the congregation said, what shall we do for wives for those who remain, since the women of Benjamin have been destroyed, right? We can't do anything else. We don't know where to get these people, Israelite wives. And they came up with this idea. And they said, there must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, that a tribe may not be destroyed from Israel. However, we cannot give them wives from our daughters, for the children of Israel have sworn an oath, saying, cursed be the one who gives a wife to Benjamin. So that's not going to work. Then they said, hey, in fact, there is a yearly feast of the Lord in Shiloh, where the tabernacle is, where he's worshipped, which is north of Bethel. They need directions to church. They haven't been there in a while, right? It's kind of crazy. On the east side of the highway that goes up from Bethel to Shechem and south of Lebona, Baloney. That's what I saw. But so they say, hey, there's this feast, and all these women come out to dance, and they're from one of the Israelite tribes that did show up to battle, but as long as they don't give their daughters to the Benjaminites, and we come in and have the Benjaminites kidnap them, then they won't be guilty of breaking their oath, and the Benjamites get their wives. I'm sure they're willing, just like the 400 from Jabesh-Gilead who had their families slaughtered before their eyes and were taken from their homes. These are the leaders of a nation. These are the bright ideas that people come up without God, right? You ever had a couple of those? Oh, man, we are such idiots. Sin makes you stupid. It makes you so stupid. Therefore, they instructed, verse 20, the children of Benjamin, go lie in wait in the vineyards and watch. And just when the daughters of Shiloh come out to perform their dances, they're not sexual, they're just like harvest, probably being near Shiloh. Maybe they're even like praising God. Then come out from the vineyards, rush out, every man catch a wife for himself. Well, that's not how most women want to be caught, is it? No. From the daughters of Shiloh, then go to the land of Benjamin. So after we've killed a whole bunch of people, really genocide, let's add to that, this is probably good, kidnapping. We'll add kidnapping to genocide, and we'll make everything that's happened right. Crazy. Then it shall be when their fathers or their brothers come to us leaders and complain, that we will say to them, be kind to them for our sakes, because we did not take a wife for any of them in the war, for it is not as though you have given the women to them at this time, making yourself guilty of the oath. Hey, you didn't lie. You didn't lie. You didn't break your oath. I mean, we know you lost your daughters, but... And the children of Benjamin did so, and they took enough wives for their number from those who danced, whom they caught. Then they went and returned to their inheritance, and they rebuilt the cities and dwelt in them. And so the children of Israel departed from there at that time, every man to his tribe. Everything's good, right? In family. And they went out from there, every man to his inheritance. And in those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. This is what happens when people say, I know the Lord. Yeah, I go to church. I know what the Bible says. I'm good. When they look at the sin of another and are blind to the sin of themselves, and then without God's help, being very distant from God, they try to fix all of that mess. 65,000 dead. And at the end of all of that, the genocide and the kidnapping, and that's not even counted, those are just the soldiers' numbers. At the end of all of that, everybody goes home like nothing happened. It's all good here. What a train wreck. Yeah, what a train wreck to live without God. And that's basically why I don't ever want to live out the book of Judges in my life. And I don't want this to be, the epitaph on America's grave. They did what was right in their own eyes. Everybody thinks they're right. You can really think you're right and be totally, totally wrong. That's basically my life story. But God, who is incredibly gracious, reached down, stooped down, and changed my heart and my mind. He enlarges people's hearts, because mine was pitifully small, and still is kind of on the small side. We sang a beautiful song, I know my God is love, right? I'm thinking, just 1 Corinthians 13, just real briefly. At the end of my life, all the faith, all the knowledge, all the works, all the stuff I've given up, money, or whatever, without love, what do I have? Nothing. Nothing. We need to know God. We need to understand his love. We need to give his love, not just to God. Jesus taught 2 great commandments. Love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your strength, all your soul. I get them mixed up. And love your neighbor as yourself. And we go, well, who's our neighbor? Look around. Not just here, everywhere. Father, we thank you for, tough couple chapters, Lord. We know it's in here for a reason, and use it to cause and provoke growth in us, Lord. So many ways we still need to change, Lord. Transform us by the renewing of our minds, Lord. Every imagination that exalts itself against, you and your wisdom and your word, we'd be ready to say, nah, I ain't going to believe that anymore. I'm not going to let that be a part of my life. I'm not going to think that way anymore. It's wrong. And Lord, change us, Lord. Thank you for your word. Thank you for this time. We pray this in your name. Amen. Grace and peace, guys.